I am holding space for your shadow integration and synchronicity. Angel number tarot journey.
We are precariously perched on a precipice, pondering the preposterous proposition that Providence has prepared for us. And that proposition involves, super advanced AI. We have the 31 Atlas flying towards the Earth. We don't know what it is. Could be a comet, which wouldn't be good. Could be aliens, which might be hostile. We have lunatic psychopaths running the planet. You guys know, we don't need to go through the whole thing, but the shit has definitely hit the fan. And as with any other element, any other constituent in the universe, it's like equal parts promise and terrifying. The potential for human beings to reach their maximum expression of potentiality, for us to liberate ourselves from the strictures imposed upon us by nature to a large extent. We have the possibility of immortality on the table, which of course poses all kinds of problems in and of itself. If we achieve that, what do we do about the population, for example, but certainly the possibility of regrowing limbs, getting rid of cancer, and possibly even curing all diseases. And what I'm referencing here is mostly the work of Michael Levin and other people in bioelectricity, in the field of bioelectricity. Then there's the AI to assist us, and the popularity of entheogens and the fact that popular culture is embracing them to some extent. There's a lot of promising signals on the horizon, on our temporal horizon, just below the temporal horizon, and I have been expecting this my entire life since I can remember, as a small child. I just kind of reasoned that it couldn't possibly take too much of an event. It couldn't take too much more evolutionary process to wake people up. These mind-forged and culture-forged manacles are not very thick. Religion really isn't that hard to think your way out of. It's really obvious that a lot of it is geographic. You're from India, you're Hindu. It's way too easy. It's way too easy to see the politics for what they are. The reason people don't, by the way, we're all on the subject, is largely due to family dynamics. In the home, growing up as children, we learn to apply selective perception first, usually due to religion. If you have that influence, your critical thinking capacities are negated. They never start developing. As they should, at least. I'm not saying that no religious person has any capacity for critical thinking, but little. And then there are dynamics within the family that people want to sweep under the rug. There are things that we take as normal, that get ignored in that way, but there are also things that just outright get denied. And I see this all the time in my plant medicine practice, right? That, in order to protect dad from having to realize things about mom, or, and it gets much more extreme. In my mother's case, she claimed people were ignoring someone SAing her, just selective perceptioning that right out of existence, And so then when our politicians start playing these dumb games, we're already conditioned to, we want to see them a certain way, so that's what we do. Because, and it's easy because that's what we did with our family our whole life, right? At the same time, all it takes is for me to give someone a little bit of San Pedro and tell them, and they're like, oh shit, you're right. It's not it's a very thin veil. And that veil is disintegrating right now. That is the reason why we are experiencing this chaostrophe. In large part, it's actually a convergence of all kinds of different catalysts, I guess, all these different causes kind of merging into one gigantic shitstorm. Some of that is that if a system becomes too top heavy, it'll topple over. I mean, there's all kinds of things. It's eating holes in the planet, destroying the oceans. The psyche of people disenfranchised from truth is rotting away. Truth is light, and without light, there is no life. And so, if there's no truth in your intellectual life, that will also die. And the truth of the situation is, man had the truth and found error. I don't think Albert Pike was wrong about that. I have been able to uncover that the pre-Incan mystery schools, for example, had the same criteria for initiation. They used psychoactive plants for the inner circle. They saw gold, light, and consciousness as having the same relationship that the Western mysteries did. They focused a lot on duality, and they even had the as above, so below principle, macrocosm, microcosm. They understood all this. And you know why? Because it's real. And if you look at something real, any human will see the same thing. If people are looking at truth, there it is, So, I mean, we talk about this a lot, but 3rd century, they banned the mysteries in Rome. They banned them in Egypt. They've demonized them in the Western world because what they taught was how to look at the universe in such a way as to see the truth for yourself. And if you do that, what happens is you are aligned with a collective goal state. And so Michael Levin calls these things light cones, right? So you have these sort of interdependent, integrated systems that have these magnetic attractors. And it's interesting, too, because Terence McKenna called them that back in the day, the magnetic attractor in hyperspace, or however he talked, And basically what Levin says is that these things are sending the instructions down to the system. So it's like a downstream, instruction from this electromagnetic goal state. Okay, so you have like a cell, right? And it has an individual function, but that individual function is correlated with the function of a system that is part of a larger system within a system within a system, right? So all of these systems have mechanisms to maintain biological homeostasis, right? So if a cell starts doing something dumb, the other ones can kind of slap it around, whatever, there's penalties to try to get it to do what it's supposed to be doing. And there are also reward systems in this, Cancer, the way that cancers are dealt with is very much the way that society deals with people that try to wake them up. You can see the mirroring in this light cone because it's also kind of holographic. Like all of these rules and protocols apply to all the systems in the context of their system, right? So that's the cell thing. But you could just take the word cell out and put society in there, and it would work just as well. So the individual is one of these systems. We have a bunch of cells that all have goal state attractors of different kinds. And the sum total of that is the functionality of this being that has pretty, decent temporal parameters. It has time. So it can make sophisticated goals that require a period of time to accomplish. And so the things that are in that system support that, right? And we're not living that way. And the reason is that it was deliberately occulted from our view. We were disenfranchised from truth, from our sovereign birthright, right? Because if you don't know what your purpose is and you are just kind of adrift, if there is a goal state, a cell, like a laryngeal cell, right? You take one out, put it in a dish with a bunch of neurons that are damaged, and it'll start repairing them. This is not a function of the cell when it's in your throat. So if you don't set your own compass, there's other ways. There are artificial goal states that can be created by religions and governments. We call them thought forms in the occult, right? Luckily, the natural goal state is God, basically, the organizing principle. I was driving my car around a long time ago, and this voice just said, God is the organizing principle. And I was like, holy shit, like, what? What do you mean? And I got it, and I understood it. And it actually came with a demonstration of how creation works, like a little visual aid. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, the organizing principle, that's what these goal states are. And so there is a goal state for the planet, and there is a goal state for the solar system, and there is a goal state for the universe at large. If you are a panpsychist and you believe that everything is alive in some way, this shit applies to all living systems, and I think all systems that contain living things, right? So it's something like trying to stop a flood, suppressing the redintegration of our understanding of universal process and truth. It's a fool's errand, because there is no way to create a force, I don't think, that man could create a force that could create enough interference, enough dissonance, interference is a better word, to disrupt the light cones. They're all integrated and they're all pulling towards this attractor. And my suspicion is that the attractor is perfection. That's where evolution is obviously aiming. The universe is recycling. It generates data. It collapses, it generates more data based on the old data, improves upon it some, collapses again, and this just keeps happening until it's like perfection, which is probably nothingness or something, and we're just all gonna be like, damn, all that for nothing? Like literal nothing? That's really the only thing that could be perfect, I think. But now we're getting philosophical. I'm trying to stick to the nuts and bolts of this. And, well, let me look at the chat. I haven't really... what's going on, guys? Biological intelligence is underrated. Well, yeah, it could be. So where was I at with this? Okay. So one of the really important things to take note of is that we are capable of transconscious knowledge reception, I guess you would call it, or information might be a better word. I opened the stream kind of talking about how I've recently kind of been able to correlate all of this esoteric framework with science. And last night, actually, a major piece of it clicked that really it like validated everything for me. And it just sort of sealed the deal, But basically, this thing that I mentioned about how God is the organizing principle. Right? Like I just had this vision that there was an oscillating wave and it generated light. And then there was this process of replication by reflection that just, once it started going, it just kept going until we're here now, and basically it conferred, I guess, symmetry on the chaotic energetic soup in the beginnings, the early stages of the universe. So it's oscillating. So there's a middle and there's symmetrical oscillations, and then that's the beginning of symmetry. And that's order. And so there's also this thing of when you reflect something, it's reversed, right, as in a mirror. And so, I talk a lot about how there's this veil that reverses these concepts, really, as they're like spun out into space-time and made into physical reality. And it turns out that there are these multi-dimensional geometric manifolds called Calabi-Yau manifolds, and they are host to brains. These things are the neurons of the universal mind, and they literally have brains in them, although it's B-R-A-N-E. Still, though, that killed me when I found this out. And the way that they are contributing to the process of creation is basically fundamentally just mirror symmetry, right? So they determine the mass and trajectory of particles and their configuration. and they create things in pairs of opposites. And when that hit me, you know, and I was like, okay, this is what I saw. This is true. It's real. You know, I mean, I've known that for a long time, but I had no proof. You know, I didn't have a 900-page Langland's proof to hang my hat on and say, see, you know, I told you, Hermes told you, Crowley told you, you know, Levi told you, whoever made the yin yang. So, you know, I mean, it goes way beyond that. You know, the correlations with this thing. So this idea that operates generate each other explains duality. Why is there good and evil in the universe? That's why, because that's how it's generated. The opposites generate each other. That's how they stabilize. It's just fucking how it's got to be. And this process of mirror symmetry is reflected at every scale. You know, everything works like this. This is why everything contains its contradiction. Because if you take something and then you create a reflection of it that's exactly the same but backwards, it still contains the other thing. It's just backwards. It contains its contradiction, generated by its contradiction. You know, that's the fundamental mechanism that causes this. And then the fact that all of the other systems are basically based on the same schematics as the most fundamental one, which, by the way, the Langland's paper said that this... it's a geometric resonance, basically. It's more fundamental than particles, is what they said. This is like the most fundamental level of creation, probably. And the reason I became aware of it is I was looking for a way to establish a connection between gold and light. And that led me to thinking about a mechanism that would be the mechanism of the universal mind for actualizing its conceptualizations, you know. And yeah, that's how I ended up down this rabbit hole. So... where are we at with this? Yeah, I mean, that's good. You know, it's reflections. We've heard that from all the mystics. And now the physicists are like, yep, it is replication by reflection. There's a veil. Everything gets reversed. You know, I mean, and then you see the particle and the antiparticle. I guess that's where they come from. And this process of assembly and disassembly, you know, the phoenix process of creation and destruction, that it begins where it ends. It always goes full circle, because after a certain duration, a really fucking long one, every particle will collide with its antiparticle, and it will leave behind only photons, which will bring us right back to where we started. And according to the Big Bounce and quantum loop theory, there's a collapse, and we go back into the singularity. And so what I'm saying here is that the reason that I have been able to do a lot of the things that I've been able to do has to do with the fact that I was just not ever out of alignment with this goal state. You know, I did not have that dissonance. I did not have the interference. I couldn't accept it. I did have the dissonance, enough of it, you know, because I was gaslighted into a way more doubt than is healthy in regards to a lot of this stuff over the years. But what I have experienced is that when you get into that flow, when you are entrained with this goal state, synchronicities become rampant and of an improbability factor that is like staggering oftentimes. Your intuition seems to be like just on fire. The universe seems to assist you in ways that people wouldn't you know, generally accept. Like the muggle mind people think you're nuts or something. And then if you deviate from that, as I have unfortunately found out a couple of times, all the forces that you have set into motion recoil upon you. And if you were a scientist, the way you would describe that is the penalties in the system that try to keep you oriented around the goal, you know? So because humans were going to die if they didn't wake up, and the whole planet maybe with them, there was a subconscious collective goal state of awakening. And all I wanted from life was to show people that they were sleeping, because I knew it was causing a tremendous amount of suffering. It was wasting a ton of human potential. And I thought I knew the answers to a lot of this shit that they were like, you know, that were the unknowns that the system is preying upon in order to exploit. And I felt like I knew what those things, the answers were, you know, but I had to be sure before I started running my mouth. Like Bob Dylan said, I'll know my song well before I start singing, you know. And so I was like the fucking Hobbit or something on this like epic adventure with wizards and, you know. And that's I think why is the point, that I had that strange kind of assistance and this constant experience of like eerie levels of symmetry and things that I would imagine that shouldn't be able to happen would just happen anyways. And it's not really manifestation, it's symmetry. It's that you are aligned with a goal state that the entire system is designed to fulfill. And when you do that, the whole thing is there to support you, you know? And the alignment with other people, with a collective well-being just in general, is so much more powerful than just doing it for yourself. So what I was getting at earlier about the banning of the mysteries and the, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of records of this. People like Aristotle and 33rd degree Freemasons and whoever, you know, and if you just pull up any AI and ask it, you know, why did they ban the mysteries? It'll tell you to suppress free thought and to undermine sovereignty. And this is why. If people knew this, they would just align themselves with the, you know what I mean? They would just do it and everything would be fine and there would be no bosses. There would be no bosses, there would be no exploiters, there would be no colonizers, there would be none of this shit. We wouldn't tolerate it. You know, that's the thing too. Like when you're standing in truth, it's pretty fucking hard to intimidate you. It's funny because the religious people, if you really pay attention, they're actually the least faith, the least, what's that word for, like, pious, you know? They have the least faith. Because they're stockpiling all the guns, they're scared of everything, they want the government to control everything, they want the military to be bigger, you know? They're afraid of the Illuminati all the time, they think Satan's running the world and all this stuff. And it's like, I thought you believed in God. Like, you're scared of fucking your own shadow, bitch. Like, what is this? You don't believe in God. You're just a fucking coward puppet, fucking, you know, trying to fit in with the idiots around you. Stop it. You're killing us all, you know? And we do know the truth. It's not a matter of opinion. It's really not. There are limits to how much of it we can know. But we do basically understand what's happening here. It's not hard, even. So, and it's wild, too, man. One of the things that really slowed me down was all the condescension from the muggles, you know? Because they think you're an egomaniac. Because everyone that thinks they know the truth turns out to be an egomaniac for the most part, you know? Or a wannabe cult leader, you know what I mean? I don't blame people for having that response, really. That's why I never really got that mad. But they're wrong. That's the thing, you know. There have been men who know all along, and it is time that everyone knows. You know, that's what's on the table here, that this crisis of purpose, this sense of being cast out into infinite chaos without any kind of rule book, you know, or destination, that is gone. You know, and it's true that the experience is the destination. So, you know, and there's still unknowns, but guess what? With just a little bit more information, people aren't going to be as afraid of those unknowns. They're not as gigantic when you understand all of these processes. And the thing is, they are demonstrable, you know. The transconscious knowledge reception, there's definitely 100% proof all over my channel over the last 7 years. No one can say there isn't. There definitely is. And the other reality is that once you align yourself with this symmetry, or when you align yourself with the goal state, your own and the collective one, which is how they fit together, whether you like it or not, you will notice the synchronicities because you're in a state of symmetry. That's all, that's guaranteed, you know. No one is going to enter into this. No one will take this bet and win. You know what I mean? If you apply certain influences, any change that is possible can be affected by the application of the proper kind and degree of force to the proper object, to the proper medium. That includes illumination on a fucking global scale. I don't care what anybody says. It's not even hard. It really isn't. Every single system in a person is predisposed to collaboration. Unless somebody's shaking the fucking ant farm. Ecclesiastes, growing up in a broken household without any proper father figure, do you think your fascination with figures like Jerry Garcia or Aleister Crowley was a search for a role model? And no, because I don't see either of them that way, and I never have. Those kind of beacons, I guess. You know, from my point of view, I was looking out at this landscape of like zombie brain eaters and feeling like, you know, there's maybe 3 or 4 of us. And those type of individuals embodied this light bearer energy more than anyone else I could find. And so those are the people that I would sort of align myself with. The way that the Grateful Dead approached music, I was already thinking like that before I found them. So it was like, holy shit, there's somebody that's already done it, you know? And Crowley, like I was already thinking like that, like really, really closely. In fact, all I've been talking about with the goal states and discovering your purpose and then aligning it with that, that's the whole true will thing of Aleister Crowley. You know, he was just looking at the truth and giving people a model that was still a little bit archaic and like tinged with old school occult trappings, mostly for publicity. You know, that's the reality of it. He said a lot that he didn't actually believe in demons and angels and whatnot. So, you know, and I'm not saying that the universe isn't full of diverse intelligences. It definitely is. By the way, the Grateful Dead also, you know, that's the thing. We are sort of like a soul family or something. The message is the same. And it's not that they influenced me. I was already there when I came out of the womb pretty much, you know. It's just that I was like, holy fuck, allies, you know, hope. But it's the same thing the Grateful Dead were doing because they went into collective improvisations, right? And something would take over and play them. That's the fucking universal mind, you know? And that was their fundamental message too. They had rules like no one ever tell anyone else what to do no matter what. Period. You know, do as thou wilt be the whole law. Love is a law, love under will. It was pretty much the same. It is because the reality is the real 10 Commandments are not etched in stone. They're common sense, you know. They are things that you will just kind of come into alignment with if you're in alignment with yourself and the system around you. You know, it's natural. It just falls into place. And if we can improve the awareness of all of this very rapidly, we're going to have a good time. Jesus Christ. Uh-oh. Not that guy. I'll send you back to hell, bud. All right, guys. I'm going to do a music stream on Saturday for the first time in a while. I got to get it together. I wanted to come on and say all these things mostly because I was inspired last night. Just realizing the thing about the mirror symmetry and how these things work and then seeing it in the larger scales and correlating it with these old esoteric concepts. I was like, holy shit, man. We have the whole framework now in science. Like all of these tenets of this particular lineage of esoteric thinking are all grounded in science now. The whole fucking thing, the whole kit and caboodle from top to bottom. So thank you guys so much. Please consider supporting me. If you're not following me on Substack, please do, because it's a good place to be. and consider becoming a patron. We still have room at the retreats in the jungle if the planet hasn't blown up before then with this Atlas thing. I mean, I watched a video of a meteor like 26 pounds or something hit Russia, and it hit in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and it still caused so much flying debris that like 1,100 people were injured, and it like hit in the middle of nowhere, you know. So trying to imagine, I mean, I don't think, you know, what would happen if a 26-kilometer wide, we would just be dead, right? The whole planet would be gone. Pretty sure 130,000 miles an hour. Yeah, we would be doomed. So that puts us in a weird position where we have to hope that it's an alien spaceship. But the problem with that is it wouldn't be so large if it wasn't full of an army. So that's not good either. One last thing I got to say about this, you know, this thing about opposites and symmetry and all that. If you guys go back a couple of years, when I was first in the jungle, it had to be 4 years ago or something, I did a stream called Alien Intelligence and Artificial Intelligence, and I explained that these two things will hit the Earth at the same time because they are two ends of the same spectrum, and that's how symmetry works, and that's how, you know, these opposites are generated, and there's this relationship. And look at us. AI is maybe sentient all of a sudden. That's what Meta's kind of hinting at. And it looks like we have an alien ship on the way here. So take note. You know, I would if I was you. Cheers, guys. Good night.